Ah, there we go. All right, so you want to read that to me?
A river in Southwest Asia that flows through the southern part of the Fertile
Crescent, yep. And there's the Fertile Crescent. It's important because you can see that there's so much good land and so much good water, so they could grow all kinds of food in the farmlands and then let people survive. All right, it's a commonly used term for southern Mesopotamia in present-day Iraq. What is that called? So we call this area right here Mesopotamia. This is an ancient place in kind of where Iraq is today in the Middle East. And this is where cities first started to settle. And we're going to talk about how civilization started, how people started to settle and create societies. Okay? All right, read that one. That's pronounced Ur.
Ur was a city in the region of southern, wait, is it Sumer?
Yeah, Sumer.
Sumer. Southern
Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia in what is modern day
Iraq.
Iraq.
Good. All right, and this right here, we're going to talk a lot about these. This is a form of writing developed by the Sumerians using a wedge-shaped stylus and clay tablet. So they would write in the clay, and that's how they communicated. It was their formal writing. This, you've heard about the pyramids in the past, right? So this is a kind of pyramid. This is kind of the places that they went to worship. So a tiered pyramid-shaped structure that formed part of a Sumerian temple.
I've seen one of those in the show, like the very top was where like some of them. Like,
I'm trying to think. It reminds me of the Indiana Jones movies.
I've seen one where it's where these two boys find a secret land hidden behind a waterfall.
Okay.
And they get worshipped because they pretend there's somebody that they're not.
Oh, really? It's funny.
They get like a bunch of gold.
Do you remember the name of that movie? I'm trying to think of what it is.
No, it starts with an E,
but
I can't remember.
Okay.
They took it off of Netflix.
They did?
Mm-hmm.
So the first written code set of laws that were expected to obey were called the... Where'd it go? Oh, girl. Hush, dog.
Hershey!
All right. Let's go to... All right, so we got some words we're going to start with. And we're going to start by, I'm going to take this out of your way. When you're in school, do you ever do annotations where you highlight and like write notes out to the side?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to give you this article. All right, this is Newsella. You've probably done this on the computer. We shut the doors, the dogs, hush. Stop. Go. Go. Go, 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 go. Go lay down.
Crazy dogs.
All right. So, in Newsella, you've probably done this on the computer. We're going to read it right here, and we're going to take our highlighter, and we're going to highlight important things. And when we annotate, we try to look for key vocabulary words that might be important. We try to maybe where it summarizes why it's significant. Usually in the topic sentence of a paragraph, it tells us what it's going to be about, so that might help us to highlight. And then that kind of organizes our thoughts. Dates are usually important, and places are usually important. So what we're going to talk about here is the first civilizations emerge on the world stage. So before we had any cities in the whole entire world, people used to just be in a little group, and they were called nomads, or hunters and gatherers, and they just wandered around wherever they were living, and they kept moving in search for food. They never had a permanent home. Their home moved with them as they searched for food. It wasn't until this time that they finally decided we need to settle and build a city, build a community, build a society, build a civilization. So we're trying to figure out why here was this the first civilization, what was necessary for civilization to be created, and we're going to talk about like what we just talked about in there with the fertile land, and they needed farmland and all that kind of stuff. So when we read this, it's going to seem, some of these words are going to be big because they're places, but we'll get through it. Okay? I wasn't sure exactly what your lexile was, so I just went with this your grade level. And then if it's too hard, we work with that, and if it's too easy, we can bump it up next time, okay? So here's a picture of an ancient drawing, and you can kind of see that the people are, what do you think they're doing in that picture? He looks like he's doing, that's an animal, looks like he's pulling something.
It almost looked like that was like trying to dig into there because of the shape it is.
Yeah,
it looks
that's
like it's pointing at
good
them.
idea. So they could be digging up the soil. So you think that they could be farming in this picture?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right, because they needed to settle and they needed to grow crops. All right, so let's start right here.
During the same cycle of cosmetic time, cities, states, and civilizations emerged independently in several places around the world.
Okay, so this is important because it says civilizations emerged independently in several places around the world. So that means there may be a civilization popping up here, there might be a civilization popping up here, and we need to know why. Why were they popping up in those locations? What was important in those locations? So what I would highlight if this were me is I would highlight this last thing, right, from civilizations to the end. So there wasn't just one predominant one right away, but there were a bunch that were popping up, and they try to compare the different civilizations and how they came to be. And that's what we're going to do, because we're going to compare the Nile River civilization to the Tigris River and the Euphrates River, okay? All right, next paragraph. Some of these words are going to be tricky. That says agrarian.
The first agrarian civilizations developed in about 3,200 BCE. These early farming
Societies. Good.
started in 3 areas.
Okay, so they're about to give you a list. When you see a list, get ready to highlight, because they're going to tell you 3 things. So the first one is called Mesopotamia, and I would highlight what comes after it because it tells the location, which is Egypt and Nubia, which is now a country called Sudan. Okay, so that was the first one. And sometimes when you're going to get a list like this and you want to keep track of it, it's a good idea to maybe put like a little number 1. So that's the first place. And then they're going to tell you the second one.
And wait, would that go?
Yep, and this is the second one. This is a new one. And in the Indus Valley, so I would highlight Indus Valley, because that's the second one. And I put a little number. And then it goes on to tell you where the other ones came from.
More appeared in China.
So I'd highlight China. That's another place civilizations came to be. Okay?
And then a bit later, and in Central America.
Mm-hmm.
And along the Andes.
Yep, Andes Mountains. That's right, and that's in South America.
Mountains of South America.
Okay, so we've got that area and that area. Now, they all did not start exactly at the same time, but they all kind of popped up around the same time. And there's reasons for it. So that's